Craig Haley, welcome to Listening with Leaders. I'm having a hard time today, the week before Christmas. So, you are the president of a company called Smoky Mo's Barbecue in Texas, which can be called, it can be found, the website is smokymosbarbecue.com. Welcome to the show and I know you hail from outside the Austin area. Tell us a little bit about your backstory. How the heck did you get involved in barbecue?
Yeah, great question. I started out, I grew up in Houston, Texas, right down not too far from here, about 3 hours from Austin. But I went to Texas A&M University, Gigamags, for college, and I went to for IT. I wanted to be in computer science, so I went for computer science. Like many of us back in that generation, we worked our way through college, and I started working in restaurants. And there was a huge change in computer science back then. The internet kind of hit the scene. This was the early 90s, and it changed everything, honestly. And I found that I had more of a passion for the teamwork, the camaraderie, the people of restaurants than I had for programming. I still love computer science, but I didn't love it as much as I liked working in restaurants. So as I progressed out of college, I had worked my way into a manager role in the restaurants that I was at. And I ended up moving to Austin to work for another restaurant company here in Austin that had barbecue. And I loved it.
Wow. So what is it about the restaurant business, the hospitality industry that attracts you to it?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things. I think first off, there is when you leave a restaurant every day after working, there's a feeling like you've accomplished something, like your team has done something during that day that was meaningful. I think there's a couple things about restaurants that I think people don't realize, and they don't think of it as importantly as it really is. So let me explain that. One is we feed people and everybody has to eat. This is a necessity, right? Every day, every person for the most part eats multiple times generally. So it's a necessity, but you can take that necessity and you can make it a very positive experience for people. When you eat something that is incredibly satisfying, that tastes great, it changes your mood for the day. It gives you a pep in your step. It changes your attitude, positively changes your attitude in a way. It's why all of our important events generally have meals. Your graduations, your weddings, your even funerals, holidays, all those include a meal because eating is such an important thing for us, and eating great food makes those important events even better. And so that's one thing. And then the second thing is we provide customer service. We give people an experience that can impact them as well. So I don't know about you, but when I go into a restaurant or into, let's say, anywhere where you get customer service and somebody treats you well, it matters. It affects you positively as well. So I think what we can do in a restaurant is we can really impact our community in a way that's meaningful. And we do it through teamwork. We do it through a group of people with a shared vision, hustling and working hard and producing something, because you're producing food every day, and you try to create an experience for a guest that matters. And there's something about that when you're in an organization or when you're with a team and you're doing that every day that really affects you in that role in a positive way too. So I think a lot of people, and I'll end with this, a lot of people start off in the restaurant industry. It's like their first job. It was one of my first jobs. I was a sacker at a grocery store first, and then I worked in restaurants. But so you come in this role and you learn a lot about work ethic. You learn a lot about teamwork. You learn a lot about how to get along with people in your first jobs. And so as a leader in those jobs, being a restaurant manager, for example, your job matters a lot because you're working with people in their first job, and you can impact them in a way that you've done something meaningful in your life. So I think that's really what spoke to me in the restaurant role.
How did you end up as president of Smoky Mo's Barbecue?
Yeah. So I started off just like everybody else in the restaurant industry. My first job was delivery driver. So I just picked up pizzas and drove them. And then in college, I was delivering some food. And then I worked in a kitchen. And then I was a server for a little while, bartender, all the roles, right? So when I became a manager, I came to a restaurant chain here in Austin, and I was just a restaurant manager. And I looked as I started, I saw that the place I could make the biggest impact was really in the kitchen in this job, because it was a harder job. It was 6 days a week, but we weren't using data. We were cooking too much food sometimes, and we weren't cooking enough at other times. And I looked at it and said, man, if I can get in there and really chart this out and use the data, that the food will be fresher and better, and our costs will be down. And so I did that. And then I moved into a GM role. And then we built another concept restaurant. So they brought me into the corporate office of this, and we built a burger chain. And then I became the COO of the company. And through that, we sold the company. And after that, the Smoky Mo's was looking for somebody to lead this organization. It was a founder-led organization for 20 years of it. And then the founder sold. And so the new leadership wanted to bring somebody in that they felt like could take this restaurant to a different level, really something that we could replicate and we could build in more communities in Texas and outside of Texas, and even do some franchising.
So tell us a little bit about what Smoky Mo's is as a barbecue place. What sets it apart from other barbecue?
What I love about Smoky Mo's is we're a smaller box. So a lot of the successful barbecue restaurants, there's two ways that barbecue restaurants are generally successful. You've got your big chains that are large box formats. So 5 to 10,000 square foot places that you go into. There's Famous Dave's, Rudy's Barbecue. Those are successful large chains. And then you've got all of the craft barbecue places. So for example, let's say you love barbecue, Doug, and you're like, I'm going to build a barbecue restaurant, and you have a passion for it. You work inside of your barbecue restaurant every day. It's your recipes and you're the founder of it. And so one-off barbecue places are really successful as well. What you haven't seen is a smaller format. So what we're a neighborhood barbecue. So we're 2,500 square foot.
Small.
We can go into smaller neighborhoods. We can provide you with the same quality of food. We smoke all of our meats in-house. We're not doing what some of the other small box chains do, which is commissary cook or use fake smoke. We're cooking in large smokers every day and fresh barbecue, great barbecue. So we can come into communities and smaller communities and really into neighborhoods, and we can ingrain ourselves into the communities, the high schools, the churches, the medical centers. We can really work with them inside that community. And so we can get into more communities than some of these larger chains as well. And so we see this as really a distinguishing factor for Smoky Mo's.
So how many stores do you have now?
We have 20 stores, exactly 20 stores. We do have a couple on the way. We're building stores currently. And then we have a couple, obviously, that we're in lease negotiations with for
and it also looks like you're looking into franchising the operation too, which is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, we have some franchise stores already. So when I started, we had 4 different franchisees that are all still with us. They're building restaurants currently. What we're really trying to do, or what we've been trying to do the last couple of years, is really perfect the format, the prototype store, build out exactly what we're trying to do before we're signing new franchisees up. I think what's important for us is we want to be a great restaurant first. There's been companies out there, not only in food, but other types, that are really franchise sales companies. So that's what they're good at. That's how they make their money. We're a restaurant company that wants to partner with the right operators to run, for all of us to run great restaurants. We think that's also really a distinguishing factor, right? We don't want to just go find anybody that wants to join. We want to find the right people and the right operators so that we can have great restaurants.
So you've got a relatively small. First of all, you're talking about the big box. I know here in Central California we have a couple of barbecue places, and they're all those big, gigantic places, right? You get lost going inside. So small, community-oriented stores. How many employees would a typical store have?
20 to anywhere from 15 to 30.
And so you obviously have a restaurant manager
We do.
who has to run the place. What are the kind of challenges that your restaurant managers face that they've
Well,
got to deal with?
I think the biggest challenge is I think the most important thing is also the biggest challenge, which is your team, the people that you hire, how you treat them, how well you train them and coach them and lead them. I think that's also the biggest challenge. We've had a number of challenges in the restaurant industry recently with COVID was incredible, right?
Really hard.
Changed everything for a while. And we're still coming out of that tail of COVID. And so we lost a lot of people that were longtime restaurant employees. They went on to do different things, or they didn't need to work for a while. And that caused some labor shortages. And then also, we didn't, like, the service industry really struggled through COVID. A lot of it, people put on masks. A lot of the sales and a lot of the business went to off premises. So what ended up happening is the people that were coming into the business weren't trained well on how to give face-to-face service. And so we're having to go back in and really teach that. And I think that is a big competitive advantage for companies that do that, because all of us are experiencing probably a lower level of customer service than we've ever experienced in our lifetimes everywhere we go. So when you go somewhere that's just doing pretty good, it's actually distinguishing. And if you go somewhere that's great at it, I think it wows you and it changes your perspective on it. And
so it's been your experience that basically shut us down for 24 months, but during that 24-month period, the young people who would normally be your employee base never developed people skills. And when they come in now, they come in to apply for a job to be a server or a bartender or work in the kitchen or whatever. We got to train them in skills that we would take for granted 10 years ago that don't exist today.
I think that's exactly right. That's what we're finding. And I think you just have to put a little bit more emphasis and effort into it. I think they get it once you can teach them, like, they understand how that impacts people as well. And they want to do the right thing, and they want to have meaningful jobs, I think. But they're starting from a lower level.
Right.
And really wearing the masks for quite a while, the people that joined during COVID were able to wear a mask and give customer service for 1.5 to 2 years. And you think about that, they didn't have to smile.
Right.
They didn't really have to talk in the same way. It just made everything a little bit more awkward. And then, like I said, we put all this emphasis on the stuff that was leaving, that we didn't put the emphasis on the training and the coaching and the giving the service at the front for a while either.
And as soon as you started to do that, you noticed some really dramatic changes.
Yeah, I think we're still trying to work on that, honestly, but I think we've seen some dramatic changes in our stores.
So, Craig, what is it about you as an individual and a human being that's unique that you bring to the table that's made this all so successful?
Oh man, I think I have a passion, obviously, for really working with inside of that team and sharing a vision. I think that's what I really try to do. My role in my job is different than it was when I was a general manager. Like, when I was a general manager, if I wanted something to happen, I could make it happen really easily because I was there all the time. Now I'm overseeing 20 stores, and I'm not able to just make stuff happen in that way. So it's more vision casting and showing them how good we can be, and hopefully getting incrementally better I'm not the most patient person. I'm working on that. I think I think there's a level of impatience that you actually need to have as a leader. But I think it's what I would say is really that distinguishes me is that passion for excellence, that passion for really teaching and coaching our team that they're doing jobs that really matter and are meaningful, and hustling for a guest doesn't really affect you in a negative way, but it affects them in an incredibly positive way. And ultimately, when you leave your job, if you've hustled all day, you're going to be affected positively. So that's, I think, giving that, teaching that understanding and really talking about it over and over again. This is the thing that leaders do. They repeat themselves, because by repeating yourself, you're able to get people that you're able to engage that culture and actually get the culture to change. And so I would say that's a superpower of mine of just repeating myself over and over again.
Yeah. Do you get to
And
interact with the store managers directly
I
much?
do. Yeah, I do. Is the GMs really is who I interact with. I have a bi-weekly meeting with them.
Mhm.
And then when I'm in the store, I think my job when I go into stores is really to interact with as many people as possible and just talk to them and hopefully help them understand what we're trying to do, but specifically the leaders in the store, the managers. We're small enough now where I know all the managers' names, I know all their faces, they all know me. I think at some point that won't happen anymore, but I love the level where we're at because of that. I think that human interaction, the ability to have conversations one-on-one with people is something that I thrive in.
That gets me to the best question I ask in these conversations is, you've obviously learned how to listen. How important is listening in your role as president of Smoky Mo's?
Oh man, I think it's when I don't listen is when we make mistakes. I think that's part of it. I think, and then I think there's two things that listening does. One is you make, if you don't listen, you're going to make a lot more mistakes. You're not going to understand what the impact of the decisions you make are going to be. So I think that's a big part of listening is you go in and you're talking to people about your vision, where you're going, how you think we're going to get there. And then you have to listen to them tell you, okay, these are the ramifications. These are the effects of that you can't see from your position. And so then you can tweak what you're planning on doing and hopefully you don't make some of those mistakes. And I think the other part of listening that you really see is it helps you get to the best version of yourself or your best version of your organization. So by listening, okay, man, this is somewhere where I know we can be better at because this is an issue that they're having in the store. This is what the customers are experiencing. I think listening and watching are incredibly important parts of what leaders do. I really try to get the store managers to watch more. And what I mean by that is what is the experience that from the guest point of view? And I think listening is the same way. So if you're not listening to people, you're not understanding the point of view that they have. And so there's a lot more blind spots that you end up.
It strikes me that in the restaurant business, listening is the primary skill. Think of a server coming up to a table. What does that server have to be able to do?
They have to listen.
They have to listen, right?
Have to.
From the very first moment, hi, my name's Doug. I'm your server tonight. How can I help you? Right there. What does that do? That opens people up and they start talking. And so listening in your business, it's critical.
It's incredibly critical. It's critical in not just hearing what they have to say, but
Right.
understanding what they're feeling and what they need. I think
That's more important than anything else.
yeah, we talk about this I took a Ritz-Carlton training class one time, and they really talk about how you get your radar on and antenna up. And what you're trying to do is anticipate what that guest needs. Because if you walk into the restaurant, Doug, the first time you walk into Smoky Mo's, the very first time you walk in there, you're going to have a different need than somebody who's been there 20 times.
That's right.
And what we want our team to do is be able to pick that up. It's okay. This is first time. Let me explain about the pork belly. Let me make sure he understands this. And so you're filling in the gaps that the customer might have or the guest might have. And the same thing with what you see a guest walking through your restaurant and they look like, start looking around and you're like, okay, they have a question. And so you can leave them hanging out there trying to figure it out for themselves, or you can engage with them and you can give them a level of service that maybe they're looking for the restroom, or maybe they're wondering where the barbecue sauce is. And you're filling in that gap in a way that I think affects them positively. And there's 100 things like that, right? Carrying out the bags for the guest, or grabbing the high chair for somebody who's trying to hold a baby in their food.
Right.
All those things it's a watching and it's really listening and feeling what that guest needs.
I teach people how to listen to emotions rather than to words.
Love that.
And when you learn, so words are important, but emotions are even more important. And what's really cool is we're hardwired for reading other people's emotions. All we got to do is pay attention. And all the things that you're talking about happen when you can read somebody's emotions. To your point, they're walking in, they're confused, or they're lost, or maybe they're at the table and somebody's upset, or maybe they're really happy. And you key into those emotions. And actually, I teach people how to validate those emotions. Oh, you look really happy today. Welcome to Smoky Joe's. You look really happy today. Just saying that, people feel heard and visible, and it completely changes their experience with you. And you see that, and it's interesting that that there aren't many people I have on the show that get it like the way that you do, and it's really cool to see, because it really is the foundational skill of life.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're right on. We have some guests that walk up that don't want to talk, right? They want to place their order and they want you to let them go. And if you try to engage with them, how's your day been? What is it that frustrates them? And you should be able to read that. And that's why customer service, that's why the way you we teach this to managers too, but it's different for every person. The way you manage Bill is not the way you should manage John, because Bill he reacts differently to different ways of coaching and teaching and discipline, all those things. Just like if you have kids, if you want to treat them all the same, but you also want the best outcomes. And I think that's what it comes down to. What are you trying to, when you're engaging with the guest, you want the best outcome of it. Well, you don't want to follow the process. You want the best outcome.
Right.
And the process gets you to a point where it works for most people, but then you have to engage your brain. You have to listen, you have to watch, and you have to figure out, okay, for this person though, I'm going to go very quick. For this person, I'm going to engage with them and talk to them about their kids. And the same thing with your team when you're coaching them and when you're leading people. Is the best leaders get the most out of different people in different ways. And I think that's a big part of what we really try to coach GMs are.
Amazing. Managers. Good for you. One more question, I'll let you go, Craig. What's one thing about yourself that we would never know about unless you revealed it to us?
Oh, man, that's a great question. One thing about myself, I think, the first thing that came to mind, I don't know if this makes sense or not, because I don't know if people would realize it or not, but I love Formula One racing.
Really?
Yeah. And it's a little bit unusual for Texas and even coming from the South where NASCAR used to be king, but I've loved it since the late 80s, early 90s. I remember watching Ayrton Senna and getting up super early in the morning when I was a college student to watch Formula One. I love it today. It's been a part of my life. We actually have it in Austin now, which is really cool. We've had it for 10 years. But I think that's something probably people wouldn't pick up. I'm a hunting, fishing guy, and Formula One's a little bit off of that. But and being from Texas, that's not highly. It's not
That's
highly
a little
irregular, but it's
unusual.
also not
Right.
mainstream.
Good for you. Craig, I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to share your thoughts with us.
Great. Thanks, Doug. I appreciate you as well. And this was fun.
Good.